Hello, listeners. We've been around long enough that we have some housekeeping to do. First off, please remember to like and subscribe wherever you listen to us. It's a small gesture that helps the podcast a whole bunch. If you want to really help us reach more listeners and foster a love of reading, please consider leaving a comment or rating the podcast on Apple Podcasts or YouTube. The best thing you can do for our podcast is totally free. Tell your friends about us, have them listen, or just leave us a like, comment, or rating. And definitely subscribe so you don't miss new episodes. To help us expand, bring you more extras, and shape the future of the podcast, consider supporting us on Patreon. Our current goal is just to increase listenership and support enough to cover the cost of making the podcast. Our long-term goals include hiring an editor, so I have more time to give you extra content, including solo episodes, a Discord channel, book club discussion guides, and more. If you have an idea of something you want our podcast to offer as a membership reward, the best way to make that a reality is to join our Patreon and let me know. Our page is patreon.com/thebringyourownbookclub. You can find us on our website at thebybc.com, which lists all of our socials. But since this is the first announcement for all y'all, I'll give them out here as well. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/@thebyobookclub, Instagram as @thebyobookclub, and Threads as @thebringyourownbookclub. To catch up on everything we've been reading, you can find us as the BYO Book Club on the Story Graph, or Goodreads as the Bring Your Own Book Club. Also, huge thanks to Kriana Massey on Fiverr, who created the art for our logo and all of our social media profiles. Without further ado, let's get started. Welcome back to the Bring Your Own Book Club. All the fun of a book club, none of the homework. Today I am joined by my friend Kate LaChappelle. Hello, Kate.
Hi.
All right. I am very excited to speak to you today. Please tell me what book you are reading and who the author is.
So I'm actually reading a series of books. It's technically not even a book. It's a manhwa series, which is like South Korean manga, kind of. So they're graphic novels, although there are also now light novel versions that are coming out.
What's a
And
light
this
novel?
series, so a light novel is where they basically take a graphic novel and novelize it.
Oh,
So
okay.
instead of having all of the images, they transform it into a fully written out story. For this one, I feel like I would prefer the graphic novel, the manhwa version, just because fashion is a big deal in this particular story. So, and also handsome men are a big deal in this story. So I want to see it. And the series, now that I have built it up so much, is called Villains Are Destined to Die. And I will apologize in advance that I did not look up a pronunciation for the author's name, but it is Gwon Gyeoeul, and that's Gwyeo
Korean vowels.
Korean vowels, yes.
That's very interesting. And I am very intrigued to talk about many aspects of this, not least because I spent um, a majority of the last decade working in accessibility for media for blind folks.
Yeah,
And so the idea of transforming a graphic novel into a light novel isn't something I've heard of before, but like I can see how it would be negatively impacting for like the artist, but very cool for like making manga or manhwa accessible for other
yes.
audiences, which is extremely cool. All right, I too am talking about a series this week, one that the listeners have heard me say I'm reading for the last few episodes, I think. And it is called the Oxford Time Travel Series by Connie Willis. I have finished the first book, which is called The Doomsday Book, and I'm like 90% of the way through the second book, which is called To Say Nothing of the Dog.
Ooh, sounds very fun.
So, jumping into your book, what drew you to it? Like, how did you hear about it? Why did you decide to pick it up?
Yeah, I actually heard about it from a YouTuber. It just sounded really interesting. It was my first introduction to the Ikigai genre, which I don't know if you know anything about it,
I
but
don't.
it is basically this entire genre of fiction where I think it mainly is around like fiction or video games where the main character is like really into some kind of series or a game, and then they get pulled into that story as a
Oh, like a
character.
specific isekai.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Hello, listener. Slight correction. She did, in fact, mean isekai. Ikigai is a Japanese genre that involves self help. Easy mistake to make. They sound similar.
Yes. And yes, so in this one, it is this girl who she was kind of orphaned, so she's being raised by her stepdad and his sons, and they're very cruel to her. And she's just kind of like lived with that her whole life, basically. But she's gone off to university and she starts playing this dating sim, and gets really into playing as the heroine. But then she decides to play as the villain because that's like playing hard mode. And hard mode is when you play as Penelope Eckhart. But she cannot seem to get like anywhere with playing Penelope. Like she's just destined to get killed. She can't get anywhere in this game as Penelope.
Okay.
And then something happens, and suddenly she is now in the game as Penelope. And she has all of these very kind of limited options at first. And she's trying to win over these love interests and trying to make it to her coming of age day before the true daughter shows up and spoils everything for Penelope and she gets killed. Because she also doesn't know what will happen to her if Penelope is killed in the game. Like if she gets killed in the game, will she die in real life? Will she get kicked out of the game? She doesn't actually know what's going to happen.
Very
So she's
Jumanji.
just trying to survive. Yes, it's very Jumanji in that sense. But Penelope is like, she's in this very wealthy family, so she has all these gorgeous, gorgeous dresses, and all of the love interests are these very handsome, handsome men. So it just seemed like a very fun series to try out.
That's really fun. And so the series is all Penelope in these
Well, it's
stories.
this girl as Penelope.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's very interesting.
Yeah.
My series is very good, but in many ways a lot less cohesive than yours, but that's not a bad thing. So I found my series because a friend recommended it to me because she knew me and knew that time travel was already my thing. But again, sorry listeners to repeat if you've heard this at the end of previous episodes, but it's set in the 2050s, but the series itself was written or began to be written in the early 1990s.
Okay.
They just assumed like a lot of things, some of which are scary accurate, and some of which are like, oh, you had no idea that this was going to happen. Um, and the thought is that at some point between the 1990s and the 2050s, time travel has been discovered, and it is a tool used by historians to go back and check things, or they'll find something in a historical record and then they'll be able to verify it and get better insight into things. And the first book begins with someone going back to the Middle Ages for the first time,
Ooh.
which historians like are really responsible, generally speaking, in how they decide where historians are going to go. And for the most part, people tend to go back to the 20th century because so much is known about it. It's not too different from where they are now, and they can get, specific insight into World War II kind of thing. So it's dangerous, but they know the risks. And then they have some stuff that's just redlined that they rank on a scale of 1 to 10. And the Middle Ages are a 10. They're like, you're gonna die. Everything in this era is trying to kill you. You're gonna die. You cannot do it. But there's a new acting head of this particular history department in Oxford. And he downgrades the Middle Ages from a 10 because I guess it's far enough in the future that historians are like, I bet the plague wasn't that bad. Like, it's just what
Mm.
we know about it, like that we know, like when it was horrible, but no one wrote about it when things were fine, was sort of the thinking that goes into it. And so they go and they send her in before the plague reaches England, is that's when they're trying to send her. So they're trying to help her avoid things. Sorry, her is the heroine of the first book.
Yes.
And things in many ways don't seem to go as planned, both with the drop, which is what they call when they send someone back in time, and in the book's contemporary present.
Oh.
Because while they're trying to avoid her going back to the plague in the Middle Ages, this is one of the things that was scary accurate about the book. In the 2050s, actual pandemics are a bit of a risk. And that I think that feeds into why they weren't quite as scared as they should have been of the bubonic plague. There is a pandemic outbreak in the
Oh.
2050s.
Oh.
And so they're having a lot of trouble getting historians to the lab where they need to get her out.
I see.
Yes. So while they're trying to avoid the trouble in the past, the trouble that they're trying to avoid actually exists in the
Hmm.
present, which is a very interesting read. And the book itself, very dark. I don't want to spoil what all the twists are, but the author doesn't pull any punches. It feels very realistic. And I would describe it as a horror thriller,
Okay.
a science fiction horror thriller. And it had some moments that felt like a gut punch. And what I'm really enjoying about the book series is that the second book could not be more different in tone.
Oh.
It is a legitimate Victorian comedy of errors.
Oh.
This is a few years on from the previous book, and almost none of the characters are the same. The thing that makes it a series is the history department
Yeah.
and a certain character named Mr. Dunworthy who has various roles in the department depending on when the book is set. I won't spoil his trajectory.
Okay.
But basically, they've gotten a large influx of money in the second book to find and recreate the Coventry Cathedral,
Oh.
which apparently was destroyed at some point during the Blitz. And the woman, the very, very wealthy woman funding the project, doesn't have a lot of respect for historians and keeps sending them back, which leads to this thing called time lag, which you have difficulty distinguishing sounds, you become very maudlin, your thoughts aren't very fluid, you hallucinate a little bit. It's like not going to kill you, but it's makes you pretty loopy. And it happens if you do like a lot of drops
Hmm.
in
So do you
succession.
need to like go to the seaside and recover?
Well, funny you should say that. This one particular historian, he goes on something like 32 drops in a
My
week, which
God.
is like you're supposed to do like one a semester. This woman is insane, but she wants to find this one artifact really bad, and she's just got all the money, so people can't really stop her. And she won't leave this poor man alone, this poor undergrad student. So something happens while this man is severely time lagged, and another historian who was just doing her own research and her own business in the Victorian age accidentally brings back something she shouldn't.
Oh.
I won't spoil what it is because that's a major part of the book, but they need to put it back, or at least they think they need to put it back. We'll see. And there's almost no available undergrads licensed to time travel in this way. So the entire history department is really short staffed. So they send this poor time lagged kid back to the Victorian era with her to put the thing back. He doesn't really even understand at that point what he's even doing. He can't hear the word of the thing that they're supposed to put back because he's so time lagged. He's like, a fan? A hat? What? He just can't get it together. So they're like, okay, just put this thing back and then just stay in the Victorian age for 2 weeks, rest by the seaside or whatever. And because that way, Lady Shrapnel, the one with all the money, won't be able to find you. So just recover because she can't go back, so she can't force you to do more things, essentially. And things so don't go according to plan. It is riotously funny and so far from the tone of the first book, it's hard to believe it's the same author, but both are extraordinarily well written, and I am so obsessed with this series. This is like my ideal series.
So are they all like written by the same author or is it
Yeah.
like, oh, that's
Yeah,
fascinating.
I'm actually gonna look her up real quick because I've been meaning to. But like I gotta wonder, did she go to Oxford? Is she historian? Like I must know everything about her. She's so wonderful. Yeah, she was born in 1945. She went to Colorado State College. She's an
Okay.
American?
In
Oh
Fort
my
Collins?
gosh. I would never in a million years have guessed she was American.
That's wild. Did she just like move to the UK and spend a lot of time there? Or is she just a historian and she does a lot of research?
She has a degree. She has 2 degrees in English and elementary education. She lives in Greeley, Colorado.
What?
And she is a former professor of physics at the University of Northern Colorado. Literally, none of this is anything I would have predicted.
That's a wild, wild background for the author of this series.
She writes very intimately as if she is a part of the department of something at Oxford University. She talks in detail with great specificity about Oxford University and its various colleges and departments and locations. I am now even more fascinated by this woman.
Maybe she did a semester there or something and she just has like, I don't know.
Maybe.
Is there stuff at the back that's like, thank you to all of these people that I harassed incessantly for information about
I am
Oxford
gonna have to
College?
get to it. I was so excited when I finished the first book. I was like, what is the next book gonna be? And it threw me for such a loop. I just truly haven't looked into it, which is very unlike me. Normally, I do really research these kinds of things, but I
Yeah.
was just so into this series. I was like, give
You're
me
like,
more.
give me more.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that was a discovery we made together just now.
Yes.
But yeah, it's very interesting. And it's very funny actually, because whenever anyone asks about Americans or the Americas, depending on when things are happening,
Yeah.
she is very good at giving like a stereotypical British perspective of those Americans kind of thing. Or, and in the second book, the main character, like whenever he's asked anything about Americans, he's like, I don't know anything about that. I don't know. I've never been to America, which so I just assumed she'd never been to America. So yeah, so that
So funny.
I love this book so much. But yeah, it's so wild to go from like this really heartbreaking, meditative, thoughtful look at the way pandemics in various time periods can truly affect a society and ultimately the way we impact one another by
Hmm.
just the way people's lives collide. Because at some point, like, there is a lot of discussion of if time travel is an open or closed system in terms of can you actually cause change or can you not cause change? And there is a mechanism called slippage where if you're
Okay.
about to change something, the system of time travel will send you back to a slightly different time. And just, like it tends to be more the sooner you are. Like if you're going back to like the 1940s, you might have between 6 hours to a week of slippage. If you're going to the Victorian age, you might have like a day to 2 weeks of slippage, just, so you don't change things. So what happens when you send someone back to the Middle Ages? And in general, what happens when there's a pandemic? And if there's less slippage, does that mean that you picked a good time? Or does it mean that everyone's dead and you can't change anything anyway?
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting dynamic that you have in that first book. And then to just jump to the second book where it's like you're just trying to find a really ugly piece.
Of history.
Yeah, an ugly piece of a Victorian artwork,
Yeah.
they call it the bishop's bird stump is the thing they're looking for, and it's like
Oh
a
my
very
gosh.
decorative urn that was just popular in that era, and it's hideous, and it's like it depicts things like the nativity, but also the beheading of Mary, Queen of Scots. Like just everything is on this thing. It's very overloaded. That book is more a meditation on social graces and how the way we treat each other changes over time, and in some ways how it doesn't. But yeah, I am really just over the moon for my series.
I love that for you. I have a question.
Go for it.
Have you heard of the series called The Raiders of the Arcana
No, I have not.
by Jacqueline Benson? I feel like it would be up your alley. It's very like Mummy 1999. It's set in Victorian times, and it starts off with this woman who is she is like an archaeologist, but because it's Victorian times, she's not really allowed to be an archaeologist.
Hmm.
And so she's like working in this library and ends up with kind of a map to an artifact or to like kind of a lost city, a lost magical city.
I'm making many good faces,
Many
listeners.
good faces.
I'm very intrigued.
Yes, and so she goes across the ocean. She's getting chased by bad people, bad men, very bad men, and ends up finding this very handsome guide who helps her trot through the jungle to try to find this city that definitely doesn't exist, but maybe does exist, before the bad men get to it.
Ooh.
And there are three books in the series now, four if you count the little like prequel novella, but it's a very, very fun series. The second one takes place in Egypt, and she
Ooh.
meets up with her brother, who is an acting archaeologist. But I feel like it does a lot of like good work also in talking about like the ethics of especially like British archaeology in the
Especially in
Victorian
Egypt
times,
at that time.
especially in Egypt, but just like in general, and like what the duty is to the people who own these artifacts versus what they could possibly do for the world, because there are actual magical artifacts in these books.
Ooh, very fun.
But there is also a lot of like a very, very nerdy, like actual historical facts and like actual history in it, and it gets really deep in the details. But also a little bit sexy, but not too sexy. Like,
Okay, I'm down for that.
yeah, It's a very fun series,
That's really
but
cool.
I feel like it's kind of like more on the side of the second book in this series, but but I feel like it has maybe a little bit of DNA with the first one, but less of the horror thriller DNA, more of just the like it does have a bit of those questions and the responsibility and definitely the details. Like she does not shy away from the details. Her main character is a fucking nerd, if I can swear.
I love it. I love it already. You had me at nerd. That will definitely put that on my list because
Yeah.
obviously that sounds very up my alley. But going back to your book
Yes. My
or your
books,
series,
my
what would
series.
you say that you liked best about it?
Oh, I felt like I never really I felt like I never really knew where it was gonna go. Because like at first, like we're 8 volumes in now, and I feel like I think there's probably gonna be maybe 2 or 3 more volumes left in the story. Like we're definitely starting to come to a close. So it took a couple volumes for the story to like really start kicking off and for her to start kind of figuring out who like her game, so to speak, as a player, not just playing the game and being able to hit start over anytime she wanted, but to like really try to survive. But in doing so, like in figuring out her game, I feel like the biggest thing is seeing her journey as a character, but also as a person, because I feel like I was saying at the beginning, she has spent her entire life being bullied and downtrodden and like not being able to stick up for herself. And over time, she has seen all of the ways that this character was really created to be a villain. And like she wasn't ever, she was also very mistreated. Like Penelope as a character was mistreated. She was bullied by her adoptive brothers. Like she was mistreated by this like high society that she was brought up in. She was never really given a chance to be anything other than a villain, and that's always the role that she was expected to play. So when she starts flipping the tables and like taking charge and not accepting that kind of treatment anymore, it's been like really nice to see her being like, Penelope doesn't deserve this. And I'm hoping that whenever hopefully she gets back to her real life that she is able to like bring that into her real life as well. But also there's just a lot of fun because it is this like very magical world, and there's like all of these like different plots going on because it is like a kingdom. So like she's like a duke's daughter, but not like a real duke's daughter. So like she has some like cachet in the society, but there's like wars going on, and there's like this secret group that is fighting against the kingdom, and like one of her love interests is this very like ferocious prince of the kingdom who is going to be king. He's going to be crowned king probably pretty soon in the story. And he is also like super into Penelope, or at least was at some point.
Interesting.
um yes, because of things that she has done. And yes, there's like this secret group that's like fighting against them, and they have a lot of magic. And that, like I said earlier, there is this whole thing that in the original game, what happens is if you play in hard mode, there's the true Duke's daughter. So like there's this Duke, and he has these 2 sons, and he had a daughter, and the daughter went missing when she was a child. And while he's searching for his daughter, he finds this young orphaned girl in the streets, and that's Penelope. And she looks a lot like his real daughter, so he takes her in, and he kind of treats her as his own, but a lot of society doesn't really accept her, and that's why she gets really like villainized, and like the brothers never really accept her, that kind of thing. So in hard mode in the story, the true daughter shows up right before Penelope's coming of age day, and the Duke takes in the daughter, and Penelope gets kicked out. Usually, one of the love interests ends up killing her because she is the villain.
And has she died? Maybe you can't say because it's too much of a spoiler, but does she die in the series? Like, or is that not a thing? I'm confused. You know what? I'll leave it.
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's. I don't feel like it's too much of a spoiler to say because of how I've been talking about it,
Yeah.
that like she is actively trying not to die
Okay.
in this run
Okay.
because she does not know what will happen if she dies.
Okay. Interesting. And so I guess my question then is, do you think this is like a story about how circumstances shape us and how we can act within constraint?
I think in part, definitely. I think a big part of it is actually, well, it's interesting because of how the game is set up for Penelope and for the true daughter. Like for the true daughter, she can basically do anything and she gains the love of the love interest like immediately. For Penelope, she has to work so hard to gain any little percentage because like the love interest, they have the little like percentage meters above their head.
Can she see them when she's in the game?
She can see them.
Can anyone else see them?
No, no one else
Oh,
knows that she is like in this. They all think that she is Penelope. Like no one knows they're in a game.
okay.
All
Interesting.
these like no one else knows. So she can see it to a point, and then at some point it gets locked, and she has to like use resources to unlock it and check it.
Oh,
Yes. Um, but if it falls too far low, that's when the love interest will kill her. So that's why she has to keep those percentage meters up.
wow.
And so there's a lot of like weird people pleasing that happens in the beginning, and she's very afraid of like doing things that will like upset the people around her because they might kill her.
Wow.
Yes. So it gets like really dark in that sense. But now she's far enough along that she's just like, screw all of this. Screw all of you. I don't like, I don't care anymore. Like, she's just
Wow.
like, I am going to do what I'm going to do. And now she's starting to see that, like, when she's being like truly herself, sometimes that also makes the percentage go up
That's
instead of
cool.
just following the script.
That's very interesting.
So I think in that sense, it is also like helping her learn how to not just like do what she thinks will make other people happy and to actually be herself and advocate for herself and not follow those scripts.
That's very interesting.
And I think that's more where it's going.
Okay. I think it's funny because if I had just read the first book in my series, I think my answer to what I like most about this
Yeah.
series would be very different. Um, because for the first one, I really would have said I like how realistically dark
Oh,
all the content was because, time travel is very whimsical, but, pandemics aren't, plagues aren't. And the way that it was balanced to not feel too fluffy or too unreal. And again, very rooted in what I felt like must be an actual Oxford historian um,
yes.
perspective. I thought that was really impressive. But now that I'm into the more screwball comedy style of the second book, I'd say my answer is a lot more complicated.
Is it the research?
I mean, God, I love historically accurate research personally. And I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I think I've mentioned it to every friend I've talked about time travel related books with or historical fiction with. I really don't like when people take liberties with the facts that we know about history.
Mm.
Because when you get down to it, there's so little that we do actually know about history, about people's interior thoughts. So when someone's writing about, say, Anne Boleyn, and they're saying stuff like, I struggled to love my daughter. It's like, no, no, one of the very few things we actually know about Anne Boleyn that wasn't destroyed is that she absolutely loved Elizabeth. Like, we know this. And so that really takes me out of it a lot of the time
Hmm.
when there's information about history that's just not accurate. Because if you don't want to write about that history, just write a different book. Write
Yeah.
about a different situation where you can make it up. So I really do really enjoy the way that the framework around these series is wildly accurate. But no, I think my favorite thing about the series is, in general, throughout both books, the deep understanding of human nature,
Mm.
the way that people get when new technology is introduced that's very powerful, the way that some people are like, oh, well, I get to be in charge of this department, so I'm so important, or I have money, so I can take control of this situation. Or this technology's been out for quite a while now. I'm not as impressed by it as I once was. And frankly, I'm annoyed that I do have to go back in time so much. Like, I think that is so deeply human to be in this place of just wild exploration. Ever since I was a child, the idea of time travel has been deeply fascinating to me because if I were to be someone who could time travel, I would do it as a historian. I just want to know things. I don't need to change anything. Just give me information. I love that. So to see like it actually exist and be kind of more complicated than anyone really wants to deal with, and to actually involve a lot of research and take that romantic joy out of it for a lot of reasons, I think is so funny and so deeply, deeply human. And also just the idea that it's so impossible for us not to F things up.
Oh, so much.
Like, even on the grand time travel scale, even if time travel corrects for us, the amount that it has to correct for us because we just can't do what we're told as a species, I think is so true and so funny, and it keeps me hooked every second of every chapter.
Amazing. I have another question about this series actually, because for me, like I do love the history side of it, but also I want to know, do they ever talk to like, do they have a specific costume department
They
that
do.
prepares clothes for them? Do they talk to them? Are they like involved in this? Are they
Oh,
ever
they're
like
so involved and they're
they're so
stretched
involved?
so thin.
Okay, they're
They
stretched
are
so
so
thin.
annoyed with this awful woman, Lady Shrapnel.
I'm sure they were especially annoyed when that guy lifted the ban on the Middle Ages, and they're like, "How am I supposed to source period accurate
No, that one was
blood?"
actually great
That one was
because
great. Okay.
like the history department, as you might imagine, when it has access to time travel, is no longer just a history department.
Yeah.
It is a science department and a costume department and like all of these other
And
things.
linguistics and
Yeah, and then also divided by era. So like
okay.
20th century department is not the Middle Ages department. And so the
Yeah.
Middle Ages department knows a lot about the costuming and the culture and all that kind of stuff, but they've never gotten to implement it before.
Oh, they're like, "Oh, this is our chance."
Yeah, because all of the, historical costume experts who work in the time travel history departments, they have stuff. They've been making or sourcing stuff for the 20th century.
Yeah.
So then all these other people get a chance, and it's very interesting. Like the medical department, like the med school gets in on it,
Mm.
and because they need to, make sure you have inoculations to go back to the correct time, and make
Hmm.
sure you're not too time lagged, unless Lady Shrapnel tells you she doesn't believe in time lag. It's a mess. So yeah, it is a very accurate representation of what it would actually take, of all the different disciplines that would need to be involved.
All
And
the different support.
because that was actually one of the things I found really interesting. I was like, God, I love the idea of time travel. I so do not love the idea of historians having to be scientists. And so they're not. They have these people called techs that work in the history department, but they are, physics and computer specialists who work specifically on timing drops and running simulations to make sure that you're not going to go in the wrong time so people can have their niche, which I
Yeah.
really like. Um, yeah, and I think that's the other thing. Like it just feels so, the world building doesn't feel gratuitous. it just feels like, oh yeah, of course that would need to happen.
Yeah,
Obviously. Some people who there are people who double specialize in things, and so that's kind of what we run into a little bit in this second book, where there is someone who's a tech. So the drops where you go through, they're usually run by techs. But in this in the second book, there is someone who is a tech who has sort of been forced into the role also of costumer
of
because
course.
they're just out of costumes for the 20th century because there's only so many times you can send one person back to a specific era before other people are going to start recognizing them.
Hmm.
And so you need to dress them up as like a soldier or a parishioner of a church or even a reverend of a faraway place or a refugee of something. And they're just out. They're just out of costumes. And so the tech has to be like, I don't know what to send you back in. Maybe this'll work. It's very good. It's extremely good. I love it so much.
That's very fun. I
You
feel like
talked
it'd
about
be
costumes in your book.
best. Oh yes. Costumes, I mean, I mentioned fashion, like she's a duke's daughter. So like part of the story that before we like jump into the game is that like she has been very greedy. Very, very greedy. All she wants is like material goods. And I assume that's, part of her character that like this is the way that she is shown affection is just by getting material things. So so she is always dressed to the absolute nines, and of course this girl is dropped into this world and she's used to being in like leggings and sweatshirts and not being taken care of, so she's like, what the hell am I doing here? And she has all these like maids that she can't trust because they're trying to poison her. That's a whole storyline. um but yeah, so she gets gifted all these gowns. She's constantly going to like social events and getting dressed up beautifully. She gets engagement gifts
Ooh.
from
Various suitors.
various suitors who may or may not be successful in their attempts.
How
Um,
very Odyssey.
yeah, you've got to read to find out. But yeah, so like the illustrator for it just did an absolutely incredible job. Like I started by getting the first volume through the library because I was like, I got to check it out before I invest because they are like $20 a book if you aren't able to find them on sale. Um, but I just was so obsessed with it that I have the full collection physically because they're so beautiful that even just paging through and looking at the art itself, not even just the fashion, but the art itself is just
Oh, I love that.
so gorgeous. And I'm sorry, I'm traveling right now, so I don't even have my collection to even like show you what it looks like right now, but it is absolutely gorgeous. Like even if you can find a copy in a bookstore to look at, it might sell you on wanting to read it.
I actually do have a
Yes.
question that
Yes.
impacts like the fashion and also probably everything else about your book. Is this like a real place or is it fantasy? Is it set in a Korean sort of background history or is it westernized history? Is it Chinese court intrigue? Like what's the world that we're in?
Well, it's definitely some kind of fantasy setting. Like I mentioned, there's magic involved, and
Hmm.
there are different, there are sorcerers, and there are magical groups that are plotting against the kingdom, and there's a leader of said magical group that may or may not be someone who has been mentioned. Um, yes, but it is, I mean, it's definitely set within like a monarchical system, but I think in general it is still kind of based around like Korean art style.
Okay.
So I
So
don't
would you say it's
know.
like more of an East Asian kind of monarchical system or more of a Western one, I guess? Or a blend?
I honestly don't really know. because it
Interesting.
is like I honestly I don't know enough about like a Korean. I don't know enough about the Korean monarchy. If they did
If
they
they
ever have
had
one
one,
in
I don't know. I know they were colonized a lot by Japan and China. Yeah.
modern Korean history? I don't know much about like older Korean history to say whether or not they've had
I mean, I just know they were colonized a lot by Japan and China. So I bet those systems had an impact on
those system.
Korea,
Yeah,
but I don't know.
they've had monarchs in the past, it looks
No.
like. So it's quite possible that it's based on that, but it might also just kind of be based on the sort of general Western idea of a monarchy, because they do have princes and duchesses and dukes and whatnot. It's not, they don't like go into a ton of detail about like the actual breakdown of all the houses
That
or
makes sense.
anything.
I
It's
was
just
more
like,
wondering from a fashion perspective, like how the clothes
oh,
look and like that kind of thing.
yes, yeah, it's not set in any particular period because it is very fantastical. So like she does wear these like very intense gowns, but then like she'll show up to like a hunting party and be in like pants.
Okay.
And so it's not like strictly, and it is kind of like a big deal that she's wearing pants, but it's not such a crazy
She's not getting burned
like,
at the
oh my
stake.
God. No, she's not gonna get burned at the stake for wearing pants.
Okay.
She might get burned at the stake for being Penelope Eckhart, but but that's a difference. I mean, it is the same story, but
Very interesting.
yeah. So it's a fun thing.
Yeah. It's
I feel
just
like it's got a lot to say.
I'm very intrigued and I might actually check this out. I don't read a lot of graphic novels, but the ones I do, I tend to fall very deeply in love with.
Yeah.
One of my favorite all-time books is called Stitches by David Small, and
Okay.
it is a almost entirely wordless graphic novel, all in black and white, about this boy who does eventually grow up, and it's autobiographical. It's about David Small who grew up to be a children's book illustrator. And it is
Oh,
actually an incredibly dark story of how his father, who was a very early radiologist in the days of radiology, would do various, not particularly hazardous experiments on him, or like not ill-intentioned ones, but before medicine was very regulated, people who had access to radiation would use it for everything. And so he
yeah.
develops this huge tumor on his neck when he's 5 from all the radiation. And he has to get the tumor removed. And in the process, his vocal cords are cut and he can't speak.
Wow.
And it's a real story. And so it's actually a very dark, purposeful graphic novel because words are not something he has access to. And so a lot of stuff is illustrated by the visuals of it. It is one of the most moving books I have ever read and one of the most harrowing. And it's not really any words at all. And then on the
Yeah.
completely opposite side of the spectrum, I love the Spy Family series. I don't know if you've read it or watched the
I've seen the
anime.
movie. Or it's this is oh no no no. We're talking about Spy Family. Never mind. I was
Yeah.
thinking of the other thing. What am I thinking of? Spy Kids.
Oh, yeah. No,
No,
not Spy Kids.
completely different thing.
No,
Spy
Spy Family
Family.
is like, so the basic premise of Spy Family is it's sort of like an Eastern version, like a Far East version of the East-West pre-Berlin Wall coming down
Okay.
situation. And our main character is essentially a CIA agent, and he needs to get a believable family stat. So he adopts a little girl and marries a woman. But the little girl happens to be psychic, and the woman happens to be an assassin, and none of them know these things about each other, except for the psychic girl because she is psychic. And
Yeah.
so it's very funny navigating all these situations, especially because the girl is like 5, so it's not like she's emotionally intelligent enough to like be like, hey, let's all talk this out. Like it's a really off the wall, very fun kind of series. Um, but that's also it's a graphic novel series that was made into an anime that is very fun. Um, so yeah, this what you're describing seems well within my area of
Wheelhouse.
interest.
Yes. Well, and I was just looking it up, and it does seem like it was also based on, not based on, it was also like a web comic on Tapas.
Yeah,
Um,
probably.
yeah.
I don't know.
So, and then it got published, or it is also published. So, like, it's coming out in volumes as it gets translated from Korean. Um, it's just been like, I'm just waiting for the next volume. Like, give me, because volume 8 came out in November, and I'm just like, give me the next one.
That's one of my favorite things about modern comics or graphic series like that. Like when we think of like great works of literature, like Tale of Two Cities, like those
Yes,
were published in periodicals and people were
they
like
were.
ravenous for them.
Yeah, they were reading them, what, like every week or whatever. They were coming
Yeah,
out on the regular. Well, because that's how The Martian came out too. Like he was publishing them online, publishing
I
it
didn't
chapter
know
by
that.
chapter. Like it wasn't on, I don't think it was on like it was on like Wattpad or anything. I think he had it on either on his personal website or just on, I don't remember what website it was, but something for like some kind of science community, science people community, whatever. But he was just kind of like, this is the thing that I'm working on, and he published it chapter by chapter, and then it got picked up, and obviously now it's a best-selling novel and a movie, and
Yeah,
he
I've
has
read
a
that
bunch of
book.
other
It's
books,
amazing. I
and
had no
yeah,
idea.
yeah,
That's fun.
yeah,
Um, wow, that makes my brain go buzz. Like I have a lot of
right,
thoughts.
yeah,
Um, switching gears a bit, what are
yes.
some of the things you liked least about your book?
Least. I feel like it because it is in volumes. I feel like it does take a little bit of time for the story to like really get going. So it does take like I think at least like 2 volumes for things to like really start getting into motion. So like there's a bit of an investment in the story, which I think that happens with like any book because it is like it's a complete story that you're getting in this full series. It's just that you're getting it over several volumes instead of in one volume.
Hmm.
And I have to remind myself of that because that, I mean, that happens with any book where it's like sometimes nothing's really happening for the first 50 pages. And you're like, okay, come on,
Yeah,
get going.
that makes sense. I had some of the same issues with my theories, especially in the first book. I'd say my least favorite part was I wanted more information about the Middle Ages before it was given. Like
Oh, yeah.
there was information that the history department was trying to acquire about where this person landed and the circumstances in which she landed. And I wanted that information a lot sooner than we got it. I think having read the book in total, I think that the author made the right choice releasing information when she did. But as a reader, it was frustrating to be like, okay, but what's happening?
Yeah.
Who, like, what is the danger level? Where are we? And the answer was very satisfying when it happened, but I wasn't expecting to start reading a time travel book and then spend most of the time in the present for the
Yeah.
first little while. And it was a very interesting story, but I was confused. I was like, I wanted to read about going back in the Middle Ages, please. I don't want to know about what's happening here right now. But then, of course, the more they told me about it, I was like, wait, what's going to happen? So I got there. And I think it was a very layered, much more complex story than I was expecting when I started reading it.
hmm
But I was like, come on now, let's get here. I think she did a better job getting to the meat of things in the second book. But yeah, that was an issue. That was my biggest
Yeah.
issue.
I would say another issue is that there are a lot of love interests for her to choose from. So she's especially earlier on, she's kind of like playing the game with so many different people that like you don't get enough time with any of them to like really see where the relationships are going, which like you do as it goes on. But it's kind of like when you're setting up a new TV show or something with an ensemble cast and you're like, I don't know who any of these people are. Um,
Yes. It was like my mom for the first whole season of Game of Thrones. She was like, I
yeah,
don't, that
I don't
one,
know
the one with the
who
hair.
the one with the hair. Yeah, basically like the one that's always wearing blue. I don't know. Um, yeah, you have like a couple standouts. You're like, that's the prince. You're like, this is the sorcerer. This is this guy. And that's like, I don't know who these people are. The rest of them are. Um,
Actually, you just made a comment that I wanted to ask. Is your book in color or is
yes,
like every page?
it's full color.
Oh,
Every
wow.
page is full color.
That's pretty rare.
Yes, it is very high quality.
Okay. Fascinating.
That's why I'm also like, I would like to read the light novel, but also because I don't have the accessibility issues, like it adds because it is in full color.
That's really cool. Yeah, Spy Family just had like some pages in color, like to emphasize, but mostly black and white. And
Yeah.
Stitches was 100% black and white because that was
Yes.
the style of the story he wanted to tell. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I think, well, I was gonna say, don't quote me on this. I think that is more common for manhwa.
All color or black and white?
Full color,
Huh.
at least for the like isekai type of stories. I don't know about others, but at least this style is definitely full color. And like she has pink hair, so that's like, of course she has pink hair.
Yeah,
Um,
as she should.
as she should. But like that just adds to the fact that it's full color.
Well, I have really enjoyed learning about this
Oh,
series, and I'm not someone who's read a lot of this genre in general, but I feel very compelled to pick it up and to learn some more about it because I think the main character sounds quite interesting. So overall, what would you rate it out of 10? 10 being the best. And since you are new on the podcast, I will remind our listeners again, sorry, you've heard it a million times. The scale isn't what you're rating it as an objective work of literature. Like, don't compare this to A Tale of Two Cities. What we're looking for is out of 10, what you were looking for from the series and how it met your expectations, exceeded them. Like, did you get what you want? That's the general scale we're looking for here. So, what do you think?
okay. Okay. So I would say the earlier books in the earlier volumes in the series, I would give like 7. And then once you hit like volume 5, it's like a 10 all the way. Like every single one, I'm just like, I need the next one. I need the next one. I need the next one. I think I had the first 6 because I thought it was a 6 volume series when I got it. I thought it was
Oh,
complete when I got it. It was a nasty
oops.
surprise when I finished volume 6 and it ended on a cliffhanger. And I found out that it was, in fact, not a complete series, a completed series. Uh, so, uh, I have been eagerly awaiting every volume as it comes out, and I read them immediately and then cry until the next one comes out. And
So, how
they're
many
so
volumes are
good.
there so far?
There are 8.
Okay. And how long are the volumes, roughly?
They're about 300 pages,
Wow.
full color.
That's substantial.
Yeah,
That's really impressive.
yeah,
Okay. My series.
yes.
I will say the first book, solid 8 out of 10. The pacing
Okay.
issues in the beginning detracted for me, but if it was just based on my overall impression of the book once it ended, it would be a 10 out of 10, but there was a bit of a struggle in the beginning with the pacing of which information we were getting when. but oh, I love it. And it feels like too low of a rating as someone who has read the book and gotten through the end of it. The second book so far has been, I mean, I guess a
Because
9
you're
out of
not
10.
done. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very close. Like I've got maybe a chapter left.
Okay.
Um, but the second book I would say is a 9 out of 10, not just because I like this genre better, because I actually don't. I prefer, I'm not like a thriller reader, but when it comes to like histories of something like the plague, I want, I don't want it to be sugar coated, you know? But the fact that this author is able to switch so drastically between tones and genres and even characters. There's one single character that is the same between books. Maybe two if you count that he was mentioned but not really shown, like another character. But for it to feel equally as engrossing, equally real, was such a delight. Because when I started reading this book, the second book in the series, I had no idea it was going to change. I was like, all I knew was that there was something happening in World War II, and we've spent almost no time in World War II. And the time that we did spend there was not dark. It was it was annoyed because they were going back to World War II and like searching essentially garage sales for this piece of art that they thought might exist that no one particularly cared about. It was
Except this one lady.
this one lady who's making everyone's lives miserable. So the story itself in this book is very fascinating. And the first book, I spent a lot of time trying to guess where our time traveler landed, why she landed where she did, and what her impact on the characters around her would be. I didn't even know what to think about what was happening in the book's present with the pandemic. I didn't even know what to guess. And I loved that because it was just not the book I expected to read. So
Hmm.
I wasn't trying to guess. The second book, I have a better idea of how the author's brain works. So I'm trying to guess what's going to happen as a result of the object that was taken that shouldn't have been, and who certain characters are going to end up with, but it's not as cut and dry as like, oh, will they, won't they? Or is this a love triangle? I like so much that the author's brain is so big that the point that she's trying to get to might not even be something I realize that's happening right now. So I think that really draws me in because I'm someone who my mom yells at me about this. Like I would always like within the first 2 minutes of an episode of Bones, I'd be like, he did it, she did it, and I would be right every time because I can recognize the pattern. There's no pattern here. It's just a really well written, I guess, mystery slash screwball comedy slash comedy of errors. Like, I just love it. I just love being taken for the ride and not outsmarting the book. My brain always tries to outsmart the book, but I like that my brain also knows that I will not be outsmarting this book.
Yeah. That's the terrible joy. This I do mean that the terrible joy
Yes.
of loving stories and creating stories is that your brain is constantly like, oh, well, that's what's going on.
Yes. This one, you will not have that
And
problem.
it's
You
great
can
when you can't do that.
Yeah, like you will love being a reader of this book because you're just there for it. You're like, oh, I
Yes.
thought we were telling a different, I thought we were trying to find something else out, but okay, we're here now.
Okay, we're here. This is
Yeah.
what's going on. Never mind.
Yeah,
JK.
I love it so much. And then our final question that we always
Okay.
ask, what are you reading next?
What am I reading next? Well, what am I reading next, or what am I reading right now?
Right now also works after the book that you are speaking of.
Well, right now I am reading Big Nick Energy by Kristen Bailey. It is a holiday rom-com. She writes other books, but I found her a couple years ago because she writes like Christmassy rom-coms every year. And I found one year. I thought it was really funny and really light and enjoyable. And then she had another one come out the next year, and I was like, great, I'll read that. So now it's just like become my tradition every year to read her holiday romance around Christmas. because it's the day after Christmas that we're recording. Um, and so I'm reading that right now, and I'm about 60% in, and it is very fun. Um, it's very silly, very fun. It has a second chance romance, which notoriously I hate. But I feel like that is not the person that she is going to end up with because there are two Nicks involved in this.
Ah.
So there's kind of like a love triangle is not the right word. I don't know what the right word is when it's not a closed triangle, a love V, we'll say.
Love that.
Because it's not like the Knicks are into each other. They don't even know about each other yet. I feel like that'll come up at some point. But next up on my list is actually the third book in that Raiders of the Arcana series because that came out in November, and I have been waiting to read it, and that's called the Air what is it? Arrow of Lost Fortune? Arrow of Fortune by Jacqueline Benson, and I am dying to read it. I'm so excited.
That sounds very exciting. Well, next up for me is because these books are dense. I'm a fast reader. Like I read I read quite fast to the point where like some books that are really big, I'm like, where is the rest of it? I just started. But these books that I'm currently reading, I'm having such a good time in, and I'm spending more time in them voluntarily instead of just, reading to read.
Hmm.
Um, that I kind of want something a little lighter and maybe a little more formulaic for my next book. So I think I have a journey I'm going on making my way through the Poirot series by Agatha
Ooh,
Christie. So next up for
is that
me,
lighter?
it is because it's traditional,
Okay.
mystery, who done it kind of thing. Like the goal of what you're trying to find as a reader is very clear. Like
Yeah,
who
that's fair.
did the murder, who did the crime, you know?
Fair.
Whereas the goal in these books is
What is happening?
yeah. Um, what is happening, and am I caring about the correct thing in this moment? Um, which I love, but I do like to switch between books and
Mhm.
sort of give my brain different stimuli. And so next up for me is The Mystery of the Blue Train, which I
Ooh.
believe is number 6. I don't know if you've read a lot of Agatha Christie.
I've read a few of the Poirots, but not many. And then there were none a Poirot. No, that's not a Poirot.
I think it is. I
Is
haven't
it?
gotten to that one yet, but I know the
Okay.
story, but I've never actually read it. And that's what started
Okay.
my journey with Agatha Christie is like everyone references her books all the time.
Yes.
And so most of my life I was always like, I don't really know that I've ever read this because I just assumed that I know all of the things about the books. And I didn't. My favorite
Yeah.
so far has been The Murder of Roger Ackroyd because
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever read it, but it was
Nope.
fascinating. It was not it was not what I expected it to be. It was most of the books are third person omniscient, and this was like first person and not from Poirot's perspective. And so
Hmm.
I was intrigued as to why, and there was a narrative reason for it that I appreciated.
Okay.
Her style, I was never someone, and I'm sorry in advance, listeners, but we don't judge here. No matter what kind of book you read or what kind of book you like or don't like, we don't judge. We're allowed to express opinions. I have never been a Sherlock Holmes fan.
I've never read it.
Yeah, for me, it's like not interesting because it's like, oh, this one thing that nobody noticed. That's why.
Yeah.
And it's like you had to like be really in the weeds looking for something that didn't really matter to you as a reader. So I was concerned when I first started reading Agatha Christie, is this what it's going to be like? But it's not. Hers are more of a study on human nature and your assessment of human character.
Hmm.
And it's a much more nuanced guessing game, if you will.
Yeah. Speaking of human character, I'm starting a reading project next year that I'm really excited about. Because I've only, of Jane Austen's works, I've only read Pride and Prejudice. And I guess I've only really seen Pride and Prejudice adaptations and Emma adaptations. I've never seen Sense and Sensibility. I've never seen really any of the other. adaptations of any of her work. So each month I'm going to be reading her original work, and then the next month I'm going to read an adaptation of it. So like a more modern adaptation of it, and then I'll go to the next one. So I'm really excited to like finally actually read all of her books beyond just Pride and Prejudice. Similar to going through Agatha
Yeah.
Christie, that like I just never got around to reading Austen, so I'm excited to actually do so.
Yeah. I love that. If you wouldn't be opposed, I'd love to check in with you periodically on that journey, see
Yeah,
where you're at and how it's going.
yeah, I'd like that.
Excellent. All right, listeners, thank you so much for joining us. And I am so looking forward to getting together with you next time.